The ship landed on the planet with a soft hum. Ho stood near the window and looked at the alien world for the first time. The sky was purple. The buildings were tall and made of white stone that seemed to glow. Everything looked clean and perfect. Everything looked cold. He was 32 years old. He had black hair cut short and a calm face that did not show much emotion. He wore a simple dark suit that the Earth Council had given him for this day. Today was the day he would meet his future wife, a princess of an alien empire, a woman he had never seen before. The marriage was not his choice. It was not her choice either. It was politics. Earth needed allies. The empire was powerful. They had technology that humans could only dream about. They had ships that could cross galaxies in days. They had weapons that could destroy planets. And they were willing to share some of this with Earth. But they wanted something in return. They wanted a human spouse for their princess. Ho did not understand why. The look down on humans. They thought humans were weak. They thought humans lived too short. They thought humans were like children playing with fire. But for some reason the Emperor had demanded this marriage, and Earth had agreed. Ho had volunteered. He had been a soldier once. He had fought in the resource wars on Earth. He had seen death. He had caused death. When the wars ended, he became a diplomat. He learned to use words instead of weapons. He learned to smile when he wanted to fight. He learned to bow when he wanted to stand tall. And when Earth needed someone to marry an alien princess, he raised his hand. His family was gone. His friends were few. He had nothing to lose and everything to give. The door of the ship opened. A tall official stood outside. They were beautiful in a strange way. They had pale blue skin and silver hair. Their eyes were large and gold. They were taller than humans by a head or more. This official looked at Ho with no expression. "You are the human," the official said. It was not a question. "I am Ho," he replied. He bowed slightly. "I am honored to be here." The official did not bow back. He simply turned and walked away. Ho followed. They walked through the landing area and into a transport vehicle. The vehicle floated above the ground and moved without sound. Ho watched the city pass by. The people stopped and stared at him. Some pointed, some laughed, some looked disgusted. He kept his face calm. The palace was the largest building he had ever seen. It rose into the purple sky like a mountain made of crystal. Guards stood at every door. Servants moved like shadows. Everything was quiet and proper. Ho felt like he was walking into a tomb. They brought him to a large hall. The floor was polished stone. The walls had paintings of heroes and battles. At the end of the hall sat two thrones. On one throne sat an old male. His face was hard and his eyes were sharp. This was Emperor, ruler of the empire. On the smaller throne sat a young female. Princess. She was beautiful. Even Ho, who had trained himself to feel nothing, could see that. Her skin was pale blue like morning sky. Her hair was silver and fell past her shoulders. Her eyes were gold but darker than most. She wore a white dress that shone like starlight, and on her face was an expression of complete boredom. She did not want to be here, that was clear. She did not want this marriage, she did not want him. Ho walked forward and stopped at a proper distance. He bowed deeply. "Your Imperial Majesty," he said to the Emperor. "Your Highness," he said to the Princess. "I am Ho of Earth. I am grateful for this honor." The Emperor studied him like a man studying an insect. "So this is what Earth sends us," the Emperor said. "A small creature with short life. Tell me, human, how long do your kind live?" "About 80 to 100 years, Your Majesty," Ho answered. The Emperor laughed. It was not a kind laugh. "We live for 500 years. My daughter will be a widow before she reaches middle age. What a gift Earth has given us." Some of the nobles in the hall laughed too. Ho did not react. He had expected this. "But a deal is a deal," the Emperor continued. "Earth wants our technology, we want." He paused and smiled in an unpleasant way. "We want to see what humans are really like. Consider this an experiment. You will marry my daughter. You will live in this palace, and we will watch." "I understand, Your Majesty," Ho said. The emperor waved his hand. "The ceremony will be tomorrow. Take him away." Guards came and led Ho out of the hall. He did not look back at the princess. There was no point. She had not looked at him once. They gave him a room in a far corner of the palace. It was nice enough. There was a bed and a window and a small bathroom, but it was far from the main areas, far from the princess, far from anything important. They were putting him in a box and forgetting about him. That night, Ho sat by the window and looked at the strange stars. He thought about Earth. He thought about the cities and the oceans and the mountains. He thought about the smell of rain and the taste of his mother's cooking. He thought about the friends he had buried. He thought about the enemies he had killed. He thought about all the choices that had brought him here, to this alien world, to this cold palace, to this unwanted marriage. He did not feel sad. He did not feel angry. He felt ready for whatever came next. The next day, the wedding happened. It was quick and cold. Princess stood beside him and said the words she needed to say. She did not look at him. She did not touch him more than required. When it was over, she walked away without a word. Ho was now the husband of a princess, but he was also nothing, less than nothing. The days passed. Ho found a routine. He woke early as he always had. He exercised in his room. He ate the food they brought him. He walked in the gardens when allowed. He read books about history and culture. He tried to learn their language better. No one talked to him. The servants gave him food and clean clothes but never spoke. The nobles looked through him like he was made of glass. The guards watched him but said nothing. He was a ghost in the palace. Sometimes he saw Princess from a distance. She was always busy, always surrounded by advisors and guards, always going somewhere important. She never looked his way. One day, about a month after the wedding, Ho was walking in the garden. It was a beautiful place with strange flowers and singing fountains. He liked it here. It was peaceful. A group of young nobles came into the garden. They saw Ho and stopped. Then they smiled at each other. "Look," one of them said, "the princess's pet." "I heard humans are like animals," another said. "They fight and kill each other for fun." "Is that true, human?" the first one asked. He walked closer to Ho. "Are you an animal?" Ho looked at him calmly. "I am Ho. I am the husband of Princess." The nobles laughed hard. "Husband?" one of them said. "You are not a husband. You are a joke. The princess does not even look at you. You are nothing." Ho said nothing. He simply stood there, calm and still. This seemed to make the nobles angry. They wanted a reaction. They wanted him to fight or cry or run away, but he did none of these things. One of them stepped very close. "Maybe I should teach you your place, human." "That would be unwise," Ho said quietly. Something in his voice made the noble step back, just for a moment. Then the noble laughed again, but the laugh was not as confident as before. "Come," he said to his friends, "this creature is boring." They left. Ho continued his walk. He did not know that Princess had seen everything from a window above. She had watched the whole thing. She had seen how the human stood there without fear. She had seen how the nobles had backed away from something in his eyes. For the first time, she felt curious about her husband. But she pushed the feeling away. He was just a human, a short-lived creature from a primitive world. There was nothing special about him. At least, that was what she told herself. Weeks turned into months. Ho continued his quiet life. He learned more about He learned their games and their music and their art. He learned which nobles hated him and which ones simply ignored him. He learned the layout of the palace and the routines of the guards. Old habits from his soldier days. He never stopped watching. He never stopped learning. He never stopped preparing. For what, he did not know, but something in his gut told him that this peace would not last. Something was coming. He could feel it like a storm on the horizon. And when it came, he would be ready. In the meantime, he waited. He watched. And he stayed calm, even when everyone around him thought he was nothing but a weak human who had married above his place. They did not know him. They did not know what he had done. They did not know what he could do. And maybe that was exactly how he wanted it. 6 months passed since the wedding. Ho had become a familiar shadow in the palace. The servants no longer stared at him. The nobles no longer bothered to mock him. He had become part of the background, like a piece of furniture that everyone had learned to ignore. He did not mind. In fact, he preferred it this way. Every morning he woke before the sun rose. The sun was different from Earth's sun. It was smaller and gave off a soft orange light. Ho would stand by his window and watch it climb into the purple sky. Then he would begin his exercises. He had found an empty training hall in a forgotten corner of the palace. It was dusty and old, but it had space and privacy. Every morning he went there and trained his body, push-ups, sit-ups, running in place, stretching, and then the movements he had learned in the military, combat forms that flowed like water and struck like lightning. No one watched him. No one knew what he did in those early hours, and that was how he wanted it. After training, he would bathe and dress and eat the simple breakfast they brought to his room. Then he would walk in the gardens or read in the library. The library was enormous. It had books about everything: history, science, philosophy, art, war. Ho read them all. He learned about the Empire. It was old, very old. It had ruled this part of the galaxy for thousands of years. They had conquered many worlds and many species. All had fallen before power. They believed they were the greatest civilization in existence. They believed other species were inferior, including humans. Ho also learned about the current politics. The emperor was strong, but his empire had enemies. The Dominion was the biggest threat. They were a warrior race, large and brutal. They had defeated them in a war long ago, but they had never forgotten. They waited and grew strong in the shadows. There were also problems inside the empire. Some nobles wanted more power. Some generals wanted more war. The emperor was getting old. People were already thinking about what would happen when he died. Princess was his only child. She would become empress someday. This made her both powerful and vulnerable. Many people wanted to control her. Many people wanted to marry her to their sons or allies. But she was already married to a human who meant nothing. Ho understood now why the emperor had arranged this marriage. It was not about alliance with Earth. It was about keeping unmarried to any noble. A human husband was the same as no husband at all in their eyes. Remained available for future political marriages once Ho died of old age or was quietly removed. He was a placeholder, a living nothing. This knowledge did not hurt Ho. He had known from the beginning that this marriage was not real. He had accepted his role, but understanding the game helped him see the board more clearly. One afternoon, Ho was in the garden when he heard voices. He moved quietly toward the sound, staying behind the tall flower bushes. Through the leaves, he saw Princess sitting on a stone bench. She was not alone. A tall male stood before her. He was handsome in the way all were handsome, but his smile was unpleasant. "The emperor cannot live forever," the male said. "When he passes, you will need strong allies. I can be that ally." Lord said coldly, "I already have a husband." Laughed, "That human thing, it is a joke. Everyone knows it. When the time comes, that marriage can be ended. Accidents happen. Humans are so fragile." Ho's eyes narrowed slightly. He memorized the name, Lord. "I do not need your advice," said, "or your alliance. Please leave." Smile faded. "You think you can stand alone? The empire has enemies, your highness. They grow stronger every year. Your father's generals are divided. Without support, you will fall." "Then I will fall standing," said, "not kneeling to men like you." Something like respect flickered in Ho's chest. He had not expected that. His face twisted with anger, but he controlled it. You will regret this, he said softly. Then he walked away. Sat alone on the bench. For a moment her cold mask fell away. She looked tired, she looked worried, she looked young. Then she took a deep breath and put the mask back on. She stood up and walked toward the palace. She passed close to where Ho was hiding. For a moment he thought she would walk right by, but she stopped. I know you are there, human, she said without looking at him. Ho stepped out from behind the bushes. He bowed slightly. Your Highness. She turned to look at him. It was one of the first times she had really looked at him since the wedding. Her gold eyes studied his face. How much did you hear? She asked. Enough, he said. And what do you think? Ho considered the question. I think Lord is a dangerous man. I think he will not give up easily, and I think you were brave to refuse him. Something changed in her eyes, surprise maybe, or confusion. Brave, she repeated. That is not a word they use often. Perhaps they should, Ho said. They stood in silence for a moment, then shook her head slightly. You are strange, human. You do not act like I expected. How did you expect me to act? Afraid, angry, desperate for attention. That is how the weak usually behave. I am not weak, Ho said simply. Studied him again. There was something in his eyes, something that did not match his calm face, something deep and hard like stone hidden under water. No, she said slowly, perhaps you are not. She turned and walked away. Ho watched her go. After that day, things changed slightly. Still did not talk to him often. She still kept her distance. But sometimes when they passed in the halls, she would nod at him. Sometimes when she sat in the garden, she did not send him away. Small things, tiny changes, but Ho noticed them. He also noticed other things. He noticed how the servants whispered about coming trouble. He noticed how the guards seemed more nervous. He noticed how the emperor looked older every time Ho saw him. And he noticed the reports from the border, ships appearing and disappearing, outposts going silent, patrols finding nothing but empty space where there should have been colonies. They were moving, something was coming. Ho increased his training. He woke even earlier. He trained even harder. He studied the palace layout until he knew every corridor and every exit. He learned where the weapons were stored. He learned the guard schedules. No one noticed. No one cared what the human husband was doing. One evening, Ho was walking past the great hall when he heard music. He stopped and listened. Someone was playing an instrument called it was similar to a harp but with crystals instead of strings. The music was beautiful and sad. He followed the sound to a small room. The door was open a little. Inside, Princess sat alone, playing the instrument. Her eyes were closed. Her fingers moved gently over the crystals. The music filled the room like water filling a cup. Ho listened without entering. He did not want to disturb her, but after a while the music stopped. You can come in, said without opening her eyes. Ho entered and stood near the door. I apologize, I did not mean to spy. You spy on everyone, said. She opened her eyes and looked at him. You think I do not notice. You watch everything, you learn everything. Why? Habit, Ho said. I was a soldier before I was a diplomat. A soldier, set down the instrument. My advisors told me about Earth's wars. They said humans fight each other constantly. They said your history is written in blood. That is true, Ho admitted. Then why are you so calm? Why do you not fight here? You are mocked and ignored every day. Any would have demanded satisfaction by now. What would fighting accomplish? I am one human in a palace full of, if I fight, I lose. If I stay calm, I survive. Survival, said. Is that all you want? Ho thought about the question. For now, yes, but I have learned that situations change. What seems permanent today can be gone tomorrow. I wait, I watch, and when the time is right, I act. And what will you do when that time comes? Whatever is necessary. Was quiet for a long moment. Then she said something that surprised them both. "Will you sit with me? I want to play another song." Ho sat down on a chair near the wall, began to play again. The music was still sad, but there was something else in it now, something like hope. They sat together as the orange sun set outside the window. They did not talk. They did not need to. For the first time since the wedding, they were not strangers sharing a name. They were two people sharing a moment of peace. Outside the palace, ships gathered in the darkness of space. Soldiers prepared weapons. Commanders studied maps. The Dominion was ready. They had waited long enough. The storm was almost here. But in that small room, for a few more precious minutes, there was only the music and the silence and two people who were just beginning to see each other clearly. Ho listened to his wife play, and he thought about the future. He did not know exactly what was coming, but he knew it would be bad, and he knew that when it came, he would not run. He would stand and fight. For the first time, he had something worth protecting. He was not sure when that had changed. Maybe it was the way she had stood up to Lord. Maybe it was the sadness in her music. Maybe it was the small nods in the hallway. Whatever the reason, Princess was no longer just a political arrangement. She was his wife, and Ho protected what was his. The music ended, looked at him. "Thank you for staying," she said. "Thank you for asking me to," he replied. She almost smiled, almost. Tomorrow the storm would come, but tonight there was peace. The attack came without warning. Ho woke to the sound of explosions. The palace shook. Dust fell from the ceiling. Outside his window, the sky was on fire. He was on his feet in seconds. His body moved before his mind caught up. Old training took over. He pulled on his clothes and opened the door carefully, looking both ways before stepping out. The corridor was chaos. Servants ran screaming. Guards shouted orders that no one followed. Somewhere in the distance, weapons fired and people died. Ho grabbed a passing servant by the arm. "What is happening?" The servant was crying, barely able to speak. They are here. Their ships came from nowhere. The fleet is destroyed." Ho released him and the servant ran away. The warrior race that had waited so long for revenge. They had finally come. He moved through the palace, staying close to the walls, avoiding the main corridors. He needed information. He needed to know how bad the situation was, and he needed to find. Through a window, he saw the city burning. Dropships fell from the sky like rain. Each one carried soldiers, big soldiers. They were nearly 3 meters tall with skin and 4 arms. They were built for war. Soldiers tried to fight back, but they were overwhelmed. They had planned this attack perfectly. They had waited until the main fleet was away. They had struck at the heart of the empire. Ho heard fighting ahead. He pressed himself against the wall and looked around the corner. 5 soldiers stood in a wide corridor. At their feet lay dead guards. They were laughing, showing teeth like knives. He had no weapon. He could not fight 5 with his bare hands. Not yet. He needed to be smart. He pulled back and found another route. The palace was a maze, but he had memorized every path. He moved through servant passages and forgotten hallways. The sounds of battle were everywhere. He found the armory, or what was left of it. The door had been broken open. Most weapons were gone, but in a corner Ho found what he needed: a combat knife, 2 energy pistols, a rifle with half a charge. He armed himself quickly. The weapons were designed for hands, larger than human hands, but he could make them work. Now he needed to find. The throne room was the most likely place. If the emperor was making a stand anywhere, it would be there. Ho moved through the palace, avoiding patrols, stepping over bodies. So many bodies, servants, guards, nobles, that were not taking prisoners. He reached the great hall. The doors were smashed open. Inside, he saw a nightmare. Emperor lay on the floor in front of his throne. His white robes were stained with blue blood. He was not moving. Around him lay the bodies of his personal guards. They had fought hard, but it had not been enough. Standing over the Emperor was a massive. He was bigger than the others, covered in scars and medals. A commander. He was speaking into a communication device, his voice deep and ugly. "The Emperor is dead. The palace is ours. Find the princess. She must not escape." Ho pulled back before he was seen. His heart was pounding, but his hands were steady. The Emperor was dead. The palace was falling. And the wanted. He had to find her first. He ran through the palace, no longer caring about stealth. Speed mattered now. Every second counted. Where would she be? Where would they take her? The safe room. Every palace had one. A hidden place for the royal family during emergencies. Ho had found it during his months of exploration. A secret door behind a painting in the east wing. He ran toward it, praying he was not too late. The east wing was burning. Fire had spread from the initial attack. Smoke filled the corridors. Ho covered his mouth and pushed through. His eyes burned. His lungs ached, but he kept moving. He found the painting. The hidden door behind it was open. Someone had found the safe room. Ho entered with his pistol ready. Inside he found she was alive, but she was not alone. 3 guards stood with her, their weapons pointed at the door. When they saw Ho, they almost fired. "Wait," shouted. "It is the human, let him in." The guards lowered their weapons slightly but kept watching him with suspicious eyes. Ho entered the room. It was small and bare, designed for survival, not comfort. Emergency supplies lined the walls. "You should not be here," one of the guards said. "Go hide somewhere, this is not your fight." "The Emperor is dead," Ho said. The words hit like physical blows. His face went pale. The guards looked at each other in shock. "You lie," a guard said. "I saw his body in the throne room. A commander killed him. They are searching for the princess now." Sat down slowly. For a moment she looked lost. Her father was dead. Her empire was falling. Everything she had known was burning around her. Then she took a deep breath. When she looked up again, her eyes were hard. "We need to evacuate," she said. "There must be ships in the private hangar." "The hangar is on the other side of the palace," a guard said. "They are between us and it." "Then we fight through them," said. "Your Highness, there are only 3 of us. We cannot protect you against an army." "4," Ho said. The guards looked at him like he had grown a second head. "You," one of them laughed bitterly. "What can a human do?" "Get the princess to the hangar," Ho said. "That is what I can do." "Impossible, you are small and weak. They will break you like a stick." Ho looked at, "Do you trust me?" It was a simple question, but it was also the most important question he had ever asked. Everything depended on her answer. Looked at him for a long moment. She thought about the past months, the way he had watched and waited, the calm in his eyes when nobles mocked him, the stone she had sensed hidden under his quiet surface. "Yes," she said, "I trust you." The guard started to protest, but raised her hand. "He is my husband. He has as much right to fight for me as any of you. Now we move together." They left the safe room and entered the burning corridor. Smoke was everywhere. The heat was terrible. They could hear soldiers shouting in the distance. Ho took the lead. He moved differently now. The calm diplomat was gone. Something else had taken his place. Something that walked like a predator and watched like a hawk. The first they met did not see him coming. Ho came out of the smoke like a ghost. His knife found the gap in the soldier's armor, the soft spot under the arm. The fell without making a sound. The guard stared. "Move," Ho said. "Stay close, stay quiet." They moved through the palace. Twice more they met soldiers. Twice more Ho struck first. He was fast. Faster than anything they had ever seen. He used the smoke and the shadows. He used his small size to get close before the enemy could react. One of the guards whispered to another, "What is he?" No one answered. No one knew. They reached the main corridor leading to the hangar. It was wide and open. No cover. and at the end of it stood a group of 10 soldiers at least, maybe more. "We cannot get through," a guard said. "There are too many." Ho studied the corridor. He studied the angles and distances. "I can draw them away," he said. "Create a distraction. You take the princess through while they chase me." "That is suicide," said. "I will not allow it." "It is the only way. The hangar is right there. Once you are in a ship, you can escape. The Empire needs you alive." "And what about you?" Ho looked at her. For a moment the mask slipped. She saw something in his eyes, something warm and sad and determined. "I am your husband," he said. "This is what husbands do." Before she could argue, he was gone. He ran into the corridor, firing his pistol at the "Hey, over here." They turned. They saw a small human shooting at them. Some of them laughed. Then they started chasing. Ho ran. He was fast, but they were faster. Their long legs ate up the distance. He ducked into a side corridor, then another. He was leading them away from, buying her time with every step. Behind him, he heard the guards moving. He heard calling his name, but he did not look back. He had a job to do. They cornered him in a dead-end corridor. 8 of them. 8 massive warriors with 4 arms and weapons designed to tear through armor. They looked at the small human and smiled. "Nowhere to run, little creature," one of them said. "Time to die." Ho dropped his empty pistol. He held his knife in one hand. His other hand was empty. He thought about Earth. He thought about his mother's cooking. He thought about the friends he had buried. He thought about and her sad music and her golden eyes. "I am Ho," he said quietly, "soldier of Earth, husband of Princess, and I am not afraid of you." They charged. And for the first time in many years, Ho stopped holding back. Far away reached the hangar. She looked back, waiting for her husband, but he did not come. She heard screaming from deep in the palace, screaming, then silence. "Your Highness, we must go," a guard said. Wiped her eyes. She did not know when she had started crying. "No," she said, we wait for him. He is dead. No human could survive against that many." "You do not know him," said. "I do not think I knew him either, but I am starting to understand." She sat down by the hangar door and waited for her husband to come back. Or to die trying. The first reached Ho with arms spread wide, ready to crush him. But Ho was not there. He had already moved, sliding under the massive arms, his knife cutting deep into the back of the warrior's knee. They screamed and fell. Before the body hit the ground, Ho was moving again. He grabbed the fallen soldier's weapon, a heavy blade designed for hands. It was too big for him, but he did not need to swing it. He only needed to use it once. The second stepped over his fallen comrade. Ho drove the blade up through the gap in the armor at the throat. Blue blood sprayed. The eyes went wide with surprise, then empty with death. 2 down, 6 to go. The remaining stopped laughing. They spread out, trying to surround him. They were trained soldiers. They had fought many wars. They had killed thousands of enemies, but they had never seen anything like this. The human was fast, faster than any creature their size should be. He moved like water, like smoke, like something that was not quite real. One moment he was here. The next moment he was there, and every time he moved, another died. Ho felt the old training take over completely. Years of combat experience. Years of fighting in wars that had hardened him into a weapon. The resource wars on Earth had been brutal. Humans had killed humans by the millions, and Ho had been one of the best killers of all. He had hoped to leave that behind. He had hoped to become a diplomat, a man of peace. But the violence had never really left him. It had just been sleeping, waiting for the moment when it would be needed again. That moment was now. He took down the third with a strike to the eye. The fourth tried to grab him with all 4 arms. Ho used the soldier's own weight against him, redirecting the charge into the wall. This head hit the stone with a crack that echoed through the corridor. The 5th and 6th attacked together. Ho retreated, drawing them into the narrow part of the corridor where their size became a weakness. They got in each other's way. Their big bodies blocked their own attacks. Ho slipped between them like a shadow, his knife finding soft spots, weak points, the places where armor did not cover. They fell one, then the other. Two remained. They looked at the small human standing in the middle of 6 dead bodies. Their faces showed something that rarely showed. Fear. "What are you?" one of them whispered. Ho did not answer, he just walked toward them. They ran. 2 massive warriors bred for battle, trained to feel no fear, ran from a single human who was covered in blood and holding a knife. Ho let them go. He was tired. His body hurt in a dozen places. They had landed some hits. He was bleeding from a cut on his arm and another on his side, but he was alive, and the way to the hangar was clear. He walked back through the corridor, stepping over bodies, following the path to where he had left. The palace was still burning. He could still hear fighting in other parts of the building. The invasion was not over, but for now, in this small section, there was silence. When he reached the hangar, he found waiting by the door. The 3 guards stood behind her, weapons ready. When they saw Ho walking out of the smoke, they raised their weapons. Then they saw his face. They saw the blood on his clothes. They saw what was in his eyes. And they lowered their weapons. Ran to him. She stopped just short of touching him, like she was not sure if he was real. "You are alive," she said. "How? There were so many of them." "They are dead now," Ho said simply. "All of them." Most too ran away. Stared at him. The guards stared at him. None of them could understand what they were seeing. This was the quiet human, the one who walked in gardens and read books, the one who never fought back when nobles mocked him. But that human was gone. In his place stood something else, something dangerous. "Who are you?" asked quietly. "What are you?" Ho was silent for a moment. Then he said, "Before I was a diplomat, I was a soldier. Before I was a soldier, I was a boy who lost everything in the wars. I learned to fight because fighting was the only way to survive. I learned to kill because killing was the only way to protect. I hoped I would never need those skills again, but hope is not the same as reality." He looked at his hands. They were steady. They were always steady. "On Earth, they called me the ghost of soul. I was part of a special unit. We did things that normal soldiers could not do. When the wars ended, I tried to become something else, something better. But the violence is still inside me. It never left. It was just waiting." Took his hand, his bloody, violent hand, and she held it gently. "Thank you," she said, "for saving me, for being here." "I am your husband," Ho said. "This is what husbands do." Behind them, one of the guards cleared his throat. "Your Highness, we should leave. More will come." Ho shook his head. "We cannot leave yet." "What? Why?" "Because the empire is falling. If runs now, it is over. The win, the become slaves." "What can we do?" the guard asked. "The emperor is dead. The fleet is destroyed. We have lost." "The fleet is destroyed here," Ho said. "But the empire has other fleets, other armies. If we can hold the palace long enough, reinforcements will come." "Hold the palace against an invasion force? That is impossible." "I have done impossible things before," Ho looked at, "but it is your choice. You are the empress now. What do you want to do?" "Thought about running. It would be easy. Get in a ship and fly away. Hide somewhere safe and wait for the war to end. Let someone else deal with the problem." But she was not that kind of person. Her father had raised her to lead, not to run, and her husband had just killed 8 warriors with a knife. If he could do that, she could find the courage to stay. "We stay," she said. "We fight." The guards looked at each other. They looked at Ho. They looked at their princess, who was now their empress. "Then we are with you," the senior guard said, "to the end." They went back into the burning palace. Ho led the way. He found more weapons in the fallen bodies of guards. He armed himself properly now, a rifle with full charge, 2 pistols, several knives, grenades that they used for breaching doors. They moved through the palace, gathering survivors as they went. A few guards here, a few servants there, people who had hidden when the attack began and were now lost and scared. Ho organized them. He was not just a killer, he was a leader. He had commanded soldiers before. He knew how to turn frightened people into a fighting force. You watch that corridor. You secure that door. You find anything that can be used as a weapon. His voice was calm and clear. It cut through the fear and chaos. People listened, people obeyed. By the time they reached the throne room, they had gathered almost 40 survivors, mostly guards, but also some nobles who knew how to fight, walked among them speaking words of encouragement. She was scared. Ho could see it, but she did not show it. She acted like an empress should. The throne room was the heart of the palace. It was also the most defensible position. Ho studied the room and began giving orders. Barricade those doors. Set up positions behind those pillars. Create overlapping fields of fire. They followed his commands. Some of them still looked at him with confusion. This was a human, a creature they had dismissed as weak and primitive. Now he was commanding them like a general. But they obeyed, because he was the only one who seemed to know what to do. They came an hour later. They had heard that their soldiers were being killed. They had come to finish the job, but when they reached the throne room, they found it transformed into a fortress. The first wave of charged through the doors and ran into a wall of fire. The defenders shot from behind cover. The narrow doors forced them to come through in small groups where they could be cut down. Ho moved along the line, coordinating the defense. He fired when he needed to. He directed soldiers where they were needed. He stayed calm while everyone else struggled not to panic. The battle lasted for hours. Wave after wave of attack, wave after wave was thrown back. The throne room floor became covered with bodies. The air filled with smoke and screams. Fell too, good soldiers who fought bravely and died fighting. Each death hit like a blow, but she did not show it. She stood in the center of the room, visible to everyone, a symbol that they were not defeated yet. Near midnight, the commander arrived, the same one who had killed the emperor. He stood outside the throne room doors and shouted inside, "Give us the princess, and we will let the rest of you live. Continue to fight, and you will all die." Ho walked to the door. He looked at the commander through the gap in the barricade. "You want the princess? Come and take her." The commander laughed. "You are the human. I have heard about you. They say you killed 8 of my soldiers by yourself. I do not believe it. Believe what you want, but know this. If you come through this door, you will die." The commander's laughter faded. He studied the human. There was something in those calm eyes, something that made even a commander hesitate. "Who are you?" the commander asked. "I am Ho, husband of Empress, and I am the man who is going to destroy your invasion." The commander was silent for a moment. Then he signaled his soldiers to attack. Ho stepped back from the door and raised his rifle. "Here they come," he said. "Hold the line for the Empire, for the Empress." "For the Empress," the defenders shouted. And the battle continued. Hours later, as the sun began to rise, a new sound filled the air. Ships, ships. The reinforcements had finally arrived. The commander looked up at the sky and saw his invasion failing. His soldiers were exhausted. His numbers were depleted, and now fresh forces were landing all around the palace. He gave the order to retreat. They fell back, running for their dropships, trying to escape before they were surrounded. In the throne room, the defenders stood among the bodies of their enemies. They were exhausted. They were wounded. Many of them were crying. But they were alive, and they had won. Walked through the room, touching each defender, thanking them for their service. When she reached Ho, she stopped. He was sitting against a pillar, bleeding from a dozen wounds. His rifle was empty. His clothes were torn. He looked like a man who had just fought a war by himself. Because he had knelt beside him. We did it, she said. We held them. You did it, Ho said. I just helped. You did more than help. She touched his face gently. You saved us all. Ho smiled. It was the first time she had ever seen him smile. That is what husbands do, he said. Then he closed his eyes and let the exhaustion take him. When he woke up, the war would be different. Everything would be different. But for now, he rested and watched over him, the human who had become something more. 3 days after the battle, Ho woke up in a bed softer than clouds. The room around him was beautiful. Golden light streamed through tall windows. Paintings covered the walls. Medical machines hummed quietly beside him. He tried to sit up. Pain shot through his body. He had taken more damage than he realized, but he pushed through it, swinging his legs over the side of the bed. A nurse rushed in. She was with pale blue skin and worried golden eyes. You should not move, she said. You have many injuries, you need rest. Where is the Empress? Ho asked. The nurse hesitated. She is in meetings, the war continues, many decisions must be made. Ho stood up, his legs shook but held. Take me to her. But your wounds. Take me to her, please. The nurse saw something in his eyes, the same thing everyone saw now when they looked at the human. She nodded and led the way. They walked through palace corridors that were still being repaired. Workers cleaned blood from the floors. Craftsmen fixed broken walls. Everywhere people stopped to stare at Ho as he passed. Some bowed, some saluted. One young guard fell to his knees. Ho did not understand what was happening. He had just done what needed to be done. Why were they looking at him like that? The nurse brought him to the council chamber. 2 guards stood at the door. When they saw Ho, they opened the doors without question. Inside sat at the head of a long table. Around her sat generals and advisors, arguing about strategy and numbers. They all fell silent when Ho entered. Stood up, she was wearing black mourning clothes for her father. She looked tired. She looked older than she had a week ago. But when she saw Ho, something softened in her face. You should be in bed, she said. I should be with you, Ho replied. The room was very quiet. The generals watched this exchange with curious eyes. Walked around the table and stood before Ho. They looked at each other for a long moment. Then she did something that shocked everyone in the room. She bowed to him. The Empress of the Empire bowed to a human. Thank you, she said, for everything. Ho gently took her arm and lifted her back up. You do not bow to me. I am your husband. We stand together, always. Smiled. It was small, but it was real. She turned to the council. This is Ho, my husband. He will join us from now on. His counsel is my counsel. His voice is my voice. Some of the older nobles shifted uncomfortably. One of them cleared his throat. Your Majesty, with respect, he is a human. Ho looked at the noble. The noble suddenly found something interesting to look at on the table. He is more than that, said. He held the throne room against the entire invasion force. He killed dozens of warriors by himself. He organized our defense when everyone else had given up hope. Whatever he was before, he has earned his place now. No one argued. The war council continued. Ho listened and learned. They had retreated, but they were not defeated. They still held several systems near the border. The fleet was rebuilding, but it would take time. When the generals asked for volunteers to lead the counterattack, Ho raised his hand. I will go, he said. Everyone stared at him. You are not a general, one of them said. You are not even. No, Ho agreed. But I know how to fight wars. Earth may seem primitive to you, but we have been at war with ourselves for all of our history. I have led soldiers. I have planned battles. And I have something your generals do not have. What is that? They are afraid of me. He was right. News of the battle at the palace had spread. The soldiers who had run away told stories about the human demon who had slaughtered their comrades with a knife. The story grew with each telling. By now, half the army believed that a supernatural monster fought for the fear was a weapon, and Ho intended to use it. Looked at her husband. She did not want him to go, she had just found him. She had just started to understand what he was, but she was an empress now. She had to think about her empire first. Go, she said, win this war and come back to me. Ho took her hand and kissed it. I will. The campaign lasted 8 months. Ho took command of a strike force, soldiers who volunteered to follow the human. At first they were skeptical, but Ho earned their respect the old-fashioned way. He fought beside them. He bled beside them. He never asked them to do anything he would not do himself. He studied He learned their tactics, their weaknesses, their fears, and he used everything he learned to destroy them. Battle by battle, system by system, he pushed them back. He did not fight like a general. He fought like a human, unpredictable, relentless, savage when he needed to be and merciful when it served his purpose. They learned to fear him. They called him the Ghost, just like the soldiers of Earth had. When rumors spread that he was coming, soldiers deserted their posts. When his ships appeared on sensors, commanders surrendered before the first shot was fired. His legend grew. Stories about him spread across the galaxy. The human who had stopped an invasion with a knife. The human who commanded warriors like they were born to follow him. The human who never lost a battle. Finally, Ho led his forces to the enemy had nowhere left to run. Their fleet was broken. Their armies were scattered. They could either fight a hopeless battle or surrender. They surrendered. Ho accepted their surrender with grace. He did not demand revenge. He did not humiliate them. He simply asked for peace and made sure they understood what would happen if they broke it. The commander who had killed Emperor asked to meet with him privately. Ho agreed. They stood alone in a room on the flagship. The commander was old and broken by defeat. I have to know, the commander said. What are you? You cannot be just a human. Humans are weak. Humans are prey. Ho looked at him calmly. We are not prey. We are the most dangerous species in our galaxy. We fight. We kill. We destroy. We are capable of terrible violence. But we are also capable of love, of mercy, of sacrifice. We are complex. We are complicated. And we never ever give up. The commander was silent for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. I believe you, he said. I wish I had known sooner. This war was a mistake. Yes, Ho agreed. It was, but mistakes can teach us. Remember this lesson, and make sure your people remember it too. Ho returned to as a hero. The streets were lined with people cheering. Flowers fell from windows. Children waved flags. The entire empire celebrated the end of the war. But Ho did not care about the crowds. He only cared about one person. Waited for him at the palace steps. She was wearing white now. The mourning period was over. She looked beautiful like she had on their wedding day, but now her eyes were warm instead of cold. Ho walked up the steps and knelt before her. I have returned, my lady, he said. The war is won, the empire is safe. Took his hands and pulled him to his feet. You do not kneel to me, she said. We stand together always. Around them the crowd watched. Generals and nobles, soldiers and servants, all waited to see what would happen. Turned to face them all. Her voice rang out clear and strong. This is my husband, Ho of Earth. He came to us as a stranger. He was ignored and mocked and dismissed. But when our empire faced its darkest hour, he stood in the fire while others ran. He held our throne room alone against an army. He led our counterattack and saved our people. He has earned a title that has not been given in 1,000 years. She raised her hand. In it was a medal, an ancient symbol of honor. From this day forward, he shall be known as the God of War. The crowd exploded. Cheers and shouts filled the air. Soldiers banged their weapons against their shields. Nobles who had once mocked Ho now bowed their heads in respect. Ho accepted the medal, but he did not look at the crowd, he looked at. "I did not do this for titles or honor," he said quietly, "just for her. I did this for you." Touched his face. "I know. That is why you deserve the title more than anyone who ever had it before." That night they stood together on a balcony overlooking the city. The celebration continued below, but up here it was quiet, just the two of them and the stars. "Our marriage began as obligation," said. "A political arrangement. I thought you were nothing. I thought you were a placeholder." "I know," Ho said. "I was wrong, I was so wrong." She turned to face him. "Will you marry me again, not for politics, not for alliance, for love?" Ho smiled. It was still rare, but she saw it more often now. "Yes," he said, "I will marry you, as many times as you want." They kissed under the alien stars, the human and the empress, the quiet husband and the cold princess, the god of war and the ruler of an empire. Their story would be told for centuries. How a human came to thee as a nobody and became a legend. How a marriage of obligation became a love that changed the galaxy. But for now, they were just two people who had found each other in the most unlikely circumstances. And that was enough. That was everything.